I went from disciplined in the Marine Corps to wasting 16 hours a day behind the screens. And in this video, I will walk you through exactly how I got my focus and freedom back and how you can reclaim yours too without relying on willpower or deleting every app on your phone. So I'm going to walk you through it right now. So, the problem that I faced within the Marine Corps is that, ironically, I actually lacked a lot of self discipline. You might hear a lot of service members, people in the Army, the Marine Corps, Navy, whoever, they might have this superhuman ability to concentrate, to focus, to have discipline, to get the job done, to be mission oriented, all that good jazz. But for me, that wasn't always the case. Even though I strived to be the best Marine I could, and open doors in the public or with the Marines around me, behind closed doors, I struggled a lot. I really did. I, for more context, I was in the reserves, so I served for 6 years in the reserves. So that would mean I would have drills every month on a weekend, so one weekend a month, and say a few weeks out of the year we do active duty training, annual training. But there was a lot of time uh, in between. Consider this our civilian time, or where we work our civilian jobs, do whatever the case in between that the time. So in between that time, I lacked a lot of self discipline, and I spent 14 to 16 hours a day on the screens. Think video games, pornography, doom scrolling. I just involved myself completely glued to the screens without any purpose in my own life. And the worst thing about this is that I isolated myself and I disconnected from my family, my friends, and it was just a debilitating thing. It affected my mental health. I felt depressed. I had so many negative thoughts that were just eating me alive. And it affected the way I served as well in the Marines, right? It bled into my duties and obligations as a Marine. And I really don't want that for other people. Um, Another thing too, I had no structure once I transitioned into civilian life. I didn't know how to set a proper routine. I didn't have a purpose. I didn't have a structure. I didn't have anything to move me to a proper direction in life, and that was a huge struggle. Um, so I'm going to be going through the steps that I've been able to go through while I was in the Marines and share with you what I've been able to do and accomplish within the civilian side. And if you want a copy of this, do Google Doc and learn more about saving hours of your day. Then I'll be sharing this doc in my free school community called Mental Momentum. You could click the link in the description to join. But anyway, back to the value. Some of the steps I've taken and the systems I applied while I was in the military was a few things. One was to give each hour a job. And I like to think about this as structured days like you're in a Marine Corps field op. For further context, within the Marine Corps, I was a motor transport operator um, serving in an artillery unit. So every few months, we'd go out into the field, and I'm based in Virginia. So we'd go out into what was called Fort Pickett. I think it's uh, they changed the name right now, but at the time it was called Fort Pickett in Blackstone, Virginia. And we'd do field operation training. Um, so every few months in preparation uh, for war, for annual training, for anything like that. So giving each hour of a job in this setting, you need to think of how to strategically move yourself in the proper direction to where you need to go. Like think of it as a mission. So for me, it was about, say there were some days where you wake up at 04 to 05, or actually be there by 04 to 05, or 4 to 5 a.m. and we'd be in formation. Say that would last anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour. Sometimes it takes an hour because, you know, the Marines, they like to hurry up and wait. Um, so yeah, it would come as formation. So get your accountability, and then we'd either move on to the next task. Some of us would do weapons draw. So we go to the armor and then we pull out our weapons. In our case, M16s and M4s. Some people had pistols, M9s, and then just get our serialized gear because being accountable for your serialized gear in the military was crucial. It was you needed it. They valued it over your own life, basically. Then for me, it was basically vehicle checks, making sure everything is properly working. Sometimes they're not, and so we have to figure out how to uh, figure things out along the way, see what vehicles are actually working, and then we stage the vehicles. We get our licenses, and then we push out. So basically, each and every hour is almost structured to where we have this one task to take care of, then this task, and then this task. Which also leads into the next discussion of prioritizing tasks. Um, in the case of me, since I'm not involved in the military anymore, I transitioned into entrepreneurship. For me, my biggest constraints, the tasks that I need to take care of, is lead generation. Think of that as client or content, um, engaging with people, making comments on posts, DMing people, outreach, and then eventually getting into calls where I do research calls, strategy calls, and ultimately uh, booking calls and getting clients. So, what are the tasks that I need to do within each hour that gets me closer to those goals? And if you don't have something like this, if you don't have a proper structure, it's going to be easier to say, pull your phone out and just scroll or play video games because you don't have that proper structure in place in advance. You need to understand how it is you want to structure out your day. This is an important thing. So another thing too is to block focused hours for the certain tasks. For me, there are a few things that I really need to focus on. There are not a whole lot of decisions I need to make right now, but in the few decisions that I decide to make, um, it's usually involving deep work, engagements, making content, etc. Anything that involves, um, say, growing my business, and I want to have these focused hours with these specifically because I want to reduce the amount of decision fatigue. I want to reduce the amount of context switching, which context switching in itself can be a big discussion as well because you don't want to continue switching context, which is what happens when you decide to scroll on your phone. You lose your focus over time when you decide to scroll on your phone. When you open up social media, you are always giving yourself different contexts. That goes the same way within your work when you have dozens of tabs open. You don't know exactly what it is you need to take care of in each hour. So you are effectively losing the focus by switching context within um, multiple settings. So deciding what task you need to get done each hour, prioritizing, and then trying to separate them as best as possible so that you reduce the amount of context switching. Another thing too is to change environment. So changing my environment was a big one for me. Uh, I'll actually share another story about environment in my case. So before when I stepped into the Marines as well, I also struggled with pornography. I would like to, um, I'll just be upfront about that. And by the time I got to recruit training, one of the things I was worried about is, will I have these urges to, you know, I don't want to go into detail, but the interesting thing about it is when I changed my environment dramatically from being at home to being in this training setting where I was far away from home, I was no longer involved with TV, with internet, with my phone. I didn't have access to any of these things. So my alternate was just straight up discipline or nothing at all. Like I couldn't even think about scrolling on my phone because I didn't have it with me. So I had so many environmental cues changed. I had so many triggers around me change that my behavior ended up changing alongside of it. And that resulted in me being one of the most disciplined people within my platoon at the time in recruit training. I actually remember my platoon leader at the time when we graduated. He actually told me in front of my father that I was the most disciplined person in in the platoon, which was a surprising thing for me. Um, of course, that changed. That changed a lot over the years, but at the time, it really it really showed me years later the power of environment. I didn't even realize or make this connection until years down the road. Changing your environment can really help change your own behavior. The way you could do this right now, say if you are working online, one of the things you could do is to remove triggers like your phone from your desk or even your bedroom. What I like to do is before I even go to sleep, I like to put away my phone an hour before I decide to sleep. I take this time to journal, to read, or to do a healthier habit, or replace the screen time or the screens with a healthier habit like the reading and journaling before I went to sleep. This solved, this basically killed two birds with one stone here. So for me, it was easier for me to sleep because I wasn't um, stimulating my mind with God knows what on the screens like social media porn, and it also helps me in the morning, so where I'm a lot more alert, I'm a lot more energized when I wake up because I was able to get a better quality of sleep, and then I can now focus on what I need to take care of for the next day. So I like to think of it as what are some things in your environment that you could change. One thing you could do is remove triggers. That um, if that is a phone for you, as is from this my phone right here. At this stage, I don't really see my phone as much of a trigger as it used to, which is why I've been able to cultivate um, this ability to focus a lot more than I used to. But to be able to remove triggers or as a way to change your own environment could be very helpful. Um, it ultimately comes down to also making the hard thing the obvious choice. Because if you have a choice between scrolling and work, pleasure and work, you're 99 times out of 100, you're going to choose the pleasure, the scrolling, the video games, the porn, versus the work. Because your mind wants pleasure. Your mind needs dopamine. So you're going to lean into this side versus that. But if you remove the comparison of the pleasure versus what's essential, the work, if you remove this side, then it's going to be much easier to do the work in itself because you have nothing else to compare it to. Your mind doesn't make, um, can't make that comparison. So removing the friction of doing the work and adding friction to what is non essential, what is pulling you away from doing what needs to be done. Um, and I do like to think of a bonus too is to make it fun, make it enjoyable to do the work. Because if you're not enjoying the work, if it doesn't feel like is fulfilling to you, then it's going to be something that's um, you're not going to be able to focus nearly as well as someone who loves what they do, right? If there's something in your day, if there's some other tasks that you don't like to do, and it's inevitable, like there are some tasks that I don't really enjoy doing. If I can make it as fun as possible, then it's going to be a lot easier for me to focus on the task and do it for hours at a time. That's also going to move the needle to my goals, right? So make the hard thing the obvious choice. That's another step that I've definitely taken. So what are the outcomes? What has changed in my own life, and what I've been able to change for other people's lives. So, as a result of this, as of building these systems and realizing what I've been able to accomplish, I've been able to lessen my own screen time on my phone. For example, to lessen like an hour and a half a day on my phone. And on the computer, I I don't really spend too much time anything else other than work. Um, but I also like to take time away from my screens to focus on other things outside of my life, like um, spending time with my family a lot, going outside, going for a walk in nature, doing just enjoying my life outside of the screens because there's more to life outside of the screens, even outside of work. So keep that in mind. And in terms of the people that have helped along the way, I've actually had people in my community actually reduce their own screen time quite significantly. And there was one example of one person that I helped. He was a filmmaker at the time, and he still is. I check in with him every once in a while. A few months back, he went into my community and he wanted to reduce his own screen time. So, in helping him do so, he went through my onboarding process. And one of the things I asked him within the onboarding was to share his screen time. And right out of the gate, he showed me his screen time. It was about 12 hours and 36 minutes. 12 hours and 36 minutes a day, not a week and a day. So it was a lot. But showing some of the steps that I've been able to give him, showing the steps I've taken along the way, he's been able to reduce his own screen time down from 12 plus hours a day to 5 hours a day just by working with him for about 2 weeks. And I believe that you can easily accomplish that too with the systems that I have in place. And and now I live a life I no longer need to escape from, and I helped other people do the same. And currently, I do have 5 spots open to work with me one on one to help solopreneurs specifically reclaim hours of their day. So if you're curious about that, I'll have a link to apply in the description below. First come, first serve. But anyway, in conclusion, the lessons that I've learned along the way, structure creates freedom, right? You want to have a structure, you want to have a routine, and that's ultimately going to lead you to the life that you want, a life that you no longer need to escape from. Environment shapes behavior. You need to surround yourself with things that are going to pull you closer to your goals. That also includes the people you surround yourself with. It's not just about the in office space that you're working in. It's about the people that you talk with as well. If they're if you surround yourself with people that are just negative, that are pessimistic, that'll pull you down, that just say, "Dude, don't do that, man. You're just hang out with us. Just smoke. Let's party. Let's just have fun. Let's just waste our life." They probably won't say that, but if you're surrounding yourself with people that are not elevating you, that are not pulling you or pushing you towards your goals, you're surrounding yourself with the wrong people. You need to put yourself in the position of winners. You honestly want to be the lowest totem on the pole because you want to surround yourself with people that are honestly better than you, that are smarter than you, that have walked the path. Because if you're the smartest person in the room and you don't feel that smart, well, I got news for you. You're not going to elevate yourself as much as you'd like. I intentionally put myself in, in the face of giants, right? Entrepreneurs, 6, 7 figure business owners that have walked the path before me. And I intentionally do that because I want to elevate myself. Environment shapes behavior. And focus is built, not forced. Another thing here is that you can't force yourself to do the work, but you can make the work feel easier by putting yourself in positions where focus can be inevitable. But it's not going to be an overnight fix, right? focus is something that you need to strengthen. It's like a muscle that you have to flex every single day. Um, and if you don't cultivate that ability to focus, then it's going to weaken and weaken and weaken. And it can have a permanent or long lasting effect if you don't strengthen this muscle. So, focus is built, not forced. And again, thank you very much for tuning in. I hope you found this valuable. And if you found this video valuable, then consider subscribing, hit the notification bell, like this video, add in a comment, ask certain questions, and I'll get right back with you. And I will talk to you later.